know which way it's going, rumbling through the night, horns topside blowing. They blow a tune, well it works on my memories. It's a blues that moves my mood. It's coming back to me. Yesterdays are filled with sorrow, but I can feel there's power in tomorrow. Oh, nothing's gonna stop it as it flies along the track. It's hissing and it's steaming, but it's never going back to when I thought I loved you. Well, now I know I do, 'cause I've been listening to the rails and they run from
And
me.
welcome back, boys and girls. I'm Cornel Bogdan. This is Counterpoint, a musician's tale all along the Armstrong network of stations and also for ClevelandRockandRoll.com. A man who I have been a personal fan of for a long, long time. And he's finally here with us. So it's really good. His name is Robert Kidney. He is the leader of the Numbers Band, 156075, founder, songwriter, lead vocals, guitar, a little bit of everything. Robert, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for remembering me.
Please. Who could forget you, man? Who could ever forget you?
I don't know. Maybe my ex-wife.
You said that. I did not. You said that. Robert, the band, it started in what, 1970, 2025 marks the 55th year. How have you changed as a musician throughout that time?
Well, I think that as a guitar player, when I started actually playing lead, as they call it, I decided I wasn't satisfied with what I was doing. I wanted to do something that I knew was unique.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as is in most everything else I've done, I focused on that. And over the years, developed, to some people's ears, an unfortunate style. I've been nicknamed by some the Butcher.
Oh, please, come on.
And but I don't play the guitar the way other people play the guitar. First of all, I started at the age of 16 supporting my voice, and I worked as a single until I joined the band in 1970. So that's a long time. And I did quite a bit of work in folk houses, some of them well-known. I opened for Janice, Ian and Linda Ronstadt when they were just starting, and I was playing at a place called La Cave in Cleveland because the owner would let me play for free. I don't know why. But I would be like the opener and I would play. So I brought that to the band. I wasn't coming out of the band. I was bringing what I had to the band, and what I brought to the band was a very highly developed way of playing the instrument to support my voice. But I also wanted to be able to play an arpeggio style. I wanted to be able to, express myself that way. But I didn't know how. I mean, I could do a little bit of it. I played a lot of slide, okay, back then. So that was where I came from, but I brought what I knew and learned how to improvise on the slide to the guitar. So that was a different way of beginning to play in the first place.
Yes.
So, and then over the years, uh, people started using pedals and all these kinds of things, and I became fascinated with that whole thing, and now here we are.
Well, I remember I started a radio station at Youngstown State University called the Underground Sound, and back in my youth, and I came across your band, and one of the things that always intrigued me was a quote that you said, and I think it was in the late '60s at Cream magazine, and I hope I'm getting this quote correct. We are not interested in making hits. We are interested in making history. And I thought that was such a cool statement coming from, let's face it, it was rather brash, wasn't it, Robert, in the, at the age of 20, 21, 22, whatever you were at the time?
I hated the music industry. I think you got a little screwed up on the year. It would have been we were in Cream about late '70s,
Oh,
early
okay.
'80s.
Okay.
You said '60s.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Actually, the band was you apologize. Why the
Yeah.
hell do you have to apologize to me? I don't give a damn.
Yeah.
So, and the band was formed in 1969, and then but we established ourselves in the Cove in 1970.
I gotcha.
So that's why we start with 1970 as the band. And but no, I said we're not interested in making hits. We're interested in making history. And so the short end of that is, how are you going to make history if you don't make hits? Okay, so that was after the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame opened. I took a lot of
Yeah.
over. Okay, but I don't care. History isn't determined by that. History is determined by time. All right, and I had no fondness for the music industry, mainly because of my experience. When we recorded Jimmy Bell, okay, we were playing in the Cove, and when we walked on the stage for the third time, because we had two times before. The first one I refused because they recorded it in stereo, and I looked at them. I said, we can't mix this. Can't mix stereo. No, I refused. This is bull. Then they put us on a second time, and one of the band members got sick. And they give me this call. You can't cancel. We got a bass player, man. He's great. He's going to fill. And he said, no. I said, no bass player in the city of Cleveland will play this music.
Right.
They don't know how. I'm not doing it. Then somehow Hank Lacani was probably ready to kill me. He was the owner of the Agora.
You sure?
He gave us a last opportunity. This is it. They did it in 16 track, and we opened for Bob Marley. But the thing that nobody knows is when we walked on that stage, we had no idea what the music sounded like, except when we're in the middle of playing it. So when we heard the tape, it was the first time when I heard the tape, it was
Yes.
the first time I'd heard anything that we were doing, just listening.
Uh,
And
Well, you bring up a very great point because nowadays in music, everybody it's really easy to record nowadays. You understand that because of technology. Anybody who can play a guitar or sing or has some kind of vocal processing unit, they can record themselves. But back in the day, and even when I'm saying in the '70s, it was a whole different world.
it was a world we were not allowed in.
Man, that's an intense statement right there, Robert.
Well, you know, uh, it's a little bit difficult to put into words, but Nobody owns me. Okay, that comes from the way I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
You will not own me. And but the music industry owns you. And
Yeah.
that's okay for some people. I don't have a problem, don't get me wrong. People should pursue the lives they want to pursue. Just leave me alone and let me pursue the life I live.
Yeah.
Okay. But I got involved with, I'm not going to name names, but I was involved with the heavyweights in the business. And I've talked to famous people that were in the recording business. I don't like them. I
So
don't like them. It's like I don't like producers because they're determining your art in order to make it a commodity. And my art is not a commodity. It was never meant to be a commodity. There was a point at which I thought, well, gee, there's a hole in the culture here. Maybe we can step into it. But when I got involved with people I will not name, what they wanted me to do was to leave the band behind and go into the studio and play with their people.
mm-hmm.
And I said, so you're asking me to betray people who have stood on stage and played with me for 5 years, hauled equipment, suffered, and I'm going to walk on them? I said, and I said, it was easy for me to say no, but it was hard for me to accept that people actually thought like that they would suggest that. And then that's when I saw I had no desire to be involved in what I now call show business, because
Yeah.
that's what it is, show business. And it's worse than I've ever seen it now.
You
You,
really took
you
a
want me to go
chance.
on?
No, no. I mean, I want to press this even more because for someone being so young and drawing the line in the sand.
Well, look, I never got into the goddamn music business to be a star. I don't care about that. I got in the music business like this. I had a band, we're playing in a bar, there's lots of people coming in here, they love what we're doing, and I don't have to go back pouring concrete.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
that's what I did. And when you're driving your car north on 271 heading to Cleveland and you cross 82 and you're headed to 303, you remember that lane of highway. I poured it. I poured the lane when I was 17, 8 years old. I ran the rake. I did the pin pulling. I worked common labor until I went in the Navy and they fired me. But when I came back out, that's where I was headed, back to the track. That's
yeah,
what I had. They fired me from high school. They laughed me out of college. Okay.
yeah,
So when I took the stage with these guys, I'm not going to get into the story of how the band came together, but it wasn't my band. I took over one of my old friends' bands. They said, he quit. He's leaving the band. Can you front the band? I said, I guess so. And that's what happened. So when I took that stage in the Cove, and we won a real battle of the bands for the house band. It was a battle of the bands for a job, not a guitar with my name on it, so that I could go down to somewhere in North Carolina be in another contest. I'm talking about a real battle of the bands, a battle. Okay, and
yeah,
we took it, and the reason we took it is we offered something the other bands were not, and that's a primal force. It's a primal force and it's still there. And that's why you like the band, because
yeah.
when you come to see us, something is happening. All
Very,
right. You may
you,
not know what it is,
yeah,
and neither, and I don't say I do, but I can bring it. So I
yeah,
do. So,
yeah,
and then
very,
all these people, and listen to this, man. I'm smoking and got a band and all these people. Like back then, we were playing. There's like 600 people in this little club, and they're going nuts for this music, and we're cranking it, and I'm going, hey, this could be my exit.
yeah,
This could be my exit out. if I can hold this together and keep these people paid and keep these people coming, I'm going to have to go back to construction or factory. I can list the things I've done in my life. Okay. I understand what happened in Youngstown. Okay. I know it. I know those people. I feel the people. Okay. I feel them. And so that was my story. A lot of the characters I worked with back then, they were kind of hanging out, waiting to graduate from college.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying there's something wrong with that. Okay. Some of them wanted a career. They wanted to make hits. Okay. Everybody has a right. You know as well as I do, man. You get to a certain age, like maybe early 30s, and you go, hey, wait a minute, maybe I better get some kind of a life together here. Well, that's what they were doing. And they were hoping that the band that they were in was going to take them there, but they had to get through me. And it didn't work. I didn't want any part of that.
You open doors.
I don't know. I hope so. I hope so. Uh, the blues is very important to me, you know. And what you're saying is accurate, very
Yeah.
accurate.
We knew, especially for the younger folks at the time, we knew we loved the music, but we had no idea where this was all coming from, man. And I thank you for opening those doors for me.
In terms of where it was coming from, you mean
Yeah,
who the people were?
that blues based vibe, you know.
Oh, uh-huh. Well, I mean, it's complex. And uh, to me, it's not a racial thing. However, uh, it was from slavery.
Yeah,
And I understand all that. I'm very close to people, and I got to know the people who played it when I lived in Chicago. But I knew them as people. That's all I know.
yeah.
And I mean, Hound Dog Taylor. I got, it's like I would see Hound Dog Taylor. I lived in Chicago because I was in the Navy
Uh-huh.
at Great Lakes, and when I get my pass, I go into Chicago. I had friends in there that were related to the woman I was seeing at the time, and then I expanded that group of people, and I found two other guys. But I used to go downtown. I mean, back then, man, listen to this. I'm in downtown Chicago. I'm walking around the record stores. Chess Records
Mhm.
was in Chicago. You could get any chess record you want in spades. I had every Chuck Berry record. I had all kinds. I had an album that came in a paper wrapper that was written in ballpoint pen called Freddie King Sings.
Oh yeah, I know it well.
And it
Uh-huh.
was like no one ever even knew he made records where he sang,
Yeah.
and all this stuff. And then I walked in this place called the Jazz Record Mart. It was on Grant or Union, and it was just a record store. I'm looking around, and this guy comes in. He goes, "What are you looking for?" I said, "I'm looking for slide players." He goes, "Oh," and his name was Bob Kester. Okay, Bob Kester owned the Jazz Record Mart, but he also owned Delmark Records.
Uh-huh.
He was the one who put Junior Wells and Buddy Guy together to make what was probably in my own top three blues albums ever.
Yeah.
Okay, Hoodoo Man and Blues.
Yeah.
All right. And I got to know him. And what he would do was on the weekend, if you showed up at the store after he closed the store, he would take you out to the clubs because he knew everyone, because he was a record producer, and because he was looking for talent, and because he knew all the people in Chicago. And at first there'd be like three or four people there, but I was there every week.
Yeah.
So very, very often it was me and Bob, a wonderful guy. I get upset about it. But he'd say, "So who you want to see this weekend?" And I'm going, "Wow, man, is so-and-so in town?" He goes, "No, he's not, but we can go see so-and-so."
Yeah.
Oh, great. Well, see, by then I knew everybody because I
Yeah.
had the records. I knew who J.B. Hutto was. Do you know who J.B. Hutto is?
Yes, I
I
do.
knew who J.B.
Yeah.
Hutto
Yeah.
was. Okay,
Yeah.
well, I'll tell you, this is one story because I have a lot. But
Yeah.
this is one of my very, very, very favorites. Okay. So I said, well, he knew I liked slide.
Yeah.
He said, J.B. Hutto is playing tonight at the Jetstar Show Lounge. And I went, let's go. So we went into the Jetstar Show Lounge, and it was, of course, this pretty much typical sort of dingy, dark bar, like thousands and thousands of bars. The floor was linoleum, it was worn, that some of it down concrete. There were some people in there, but they were playing pool, and they're sitting around, and I'm standing there, and I'm going, Bob, where's the band? And he just looked at me with this look in his eyes, and he said, just be patient, okay? You know, with that kind of thing. He was 10 years older than me, and 150,000 years older than me too.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting, and all of a sudden I hear a mandolin. Okay, out comes Johnny Young. You may know him, you may not know him. Johnny Young is a mandolin player who sings blues and plays mandolin.
Mm.
He worked with a harmonica player named Hammy Nixon. These guys are the obscure of the obscure.
Yeah. I don't know either of them.
Well, Johnny did a couple of records with a band uh, on one of them labels out of Chicago in the 60s. I can't recall what they were. There's a lot of historic recording, great records. But he had his own record, you know. But he came out like I heard him. Him and the mandolin. And I'm standing 8 feet from Johnny Young, and he's singing to me blues on the mandolin.
Mhm.
Okay, that's the way the evening started. But to everybody else, it was just Johnny
Yeah.
singing and playing. To me, it was like seeing something I'd only heard, something I never imagined in a million years I'd ever get to hear this character. And there he was. So after he was done, the guys playing pool put their pool cues up and got some plywood out and put it on the pool table. And they got out a set of drums. Bang. We had a band, and out comes J.B. Hutto. And I got to hear J.B. Hutto play in this club, the Jetstar Show.
What a story. What a
Yep.
story, man. And
That's all I want.
you painted such a beautiful picture right there. I could see everything in my mind.
Well, I love J.B. Hutto, and he worked in a hardware store.
Yeah.
Okay. He was not a recording artist
Yeah.
like most of them were not.
Well, it reminds me of the stories when the Stones first came over from Europe and from England, and they wanted to meet their idols, and they went to Chess Records, and there's Muddy Waters painting the ceiling on a
Yeah,
ladder. You
right.
know,
Absolutely.
Muddy Waters is painting Chess Records.
Well, that's the thing that people don't understand the reality of it,
Yeah,
what it actually was. He needed the money.
yeah.
You know, my brother and I ran JB's. We cleaned the toilets. We fixed the plumbing. Okay. We ran the bar when one of the managers got in a dispute with his ex-wife over child support or child, what do you call it? Alimony or alimony? No, who can have the kid? Custody.
Oh,
Possession? Custody. Jesus, what a
Custody.
terrible what?
Custody.
Custody.
yeah,
Similar, not as bad as possession. But
yeah.
anyway, so, but he worked nights. So his ex-wife was like going to the judge. Well, he's never home at night. And he had been taking care of his boy. So my brother and I stepped up, went to Joe Bujak, JB, and said, we're going to manage the club so Bobby can go home,
Uh-huh.
take care of his kid. We did it. for a
So you
while.
you 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 can relate to the guy that was working at the hardware store and Muddy up on the
I am.
yeah,
I
you are.
am.
Yeah,
I am.
you
And,
are
you
a
know, my
blues
brother and I, yeah,
Robert, you are a blues man, through
and
and through, man.
and Bill Watson, the guy who plays bass with me, you know, we remodeled the inside of JB's for the new owner. After, I mean, this is it, man.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, after the second, I'll tell you, just run real quick thing.
Yeah.
The Cove burned down to the ground,
Yeah.
and nobody remembers that it burned down a second time.
Oh.
When we moved out of the Cove after the fire, moved JB's, we were all set up. Things were beginning to roll again. It was very rough. Most people thought we were out of business, but the word got around. And back there, social media was stapling a poster on a telephone pole. So we got that established, and Jimmy Bell, the record had come out, and we were starting to, kind of move that forward, I believe. But anyway, the Cove burned the second time, burned the roof off for JB's. We were out of work again.
Mm.
And I said, we're not doing this. This is not going to happen. And there was some guy up the street that had been driving us crazy to come play in his club. And I got a rule. I only work one club in one town. I don't
Mm.
cut people's throats. But we needed a place to stay. We went him. He said to him, he said, great. I said, all right, we'll be starting tomorrow night. And we built a stage that day. We went into the club, and the members and the guys, some guys around the band that had tools, we built and painted a stage. And that night, the paint was still wet, but we were playing. Okay, that's who we are. Why are we still after 55 years? Because of that kind of We're
Well,
like, we're like the worst weed you could ever have.
a cold sore that does not go away, right?
True, true.
Hey,
Well put.
Robert, I asked folks on my radio show to send in some questions, and this is a great segue because of what you're talking about right here. Did you ever think of writing a book? Your life story would be incredible to read, and that's Lou, a longtime fan in Columbus.
I'm working on a book now that's 8 years old. It is a
All right.
book of lyric because people, first of all, don't understand what I'm saying, and they're curious. And so I said maybe I should, for them, put a book of my lyrics together, but I didn't know how to type. So I learned how to type with my wife's help in my own little way. And I typed up all the songs. And I went, it's done. All the songs are all typed up. It's done. And my wife and some friends of mine, Jason here, said, what about, why don't you write a commentary
Mm-hmm.
about where these songs come from? And
Mm-hmm.
I got really angry about it because what the I thought this thing was done. Now you want me to do that? And she said, well, yeah, and you do illustrations, you do pen and
Yeah.
ink, you do paintings, you do all these other things. Maybe you should illustrate it. What the are you talking about? So that was 8 years ago.
I'm on your wife and Jason's side. I'm sorry. Yes.
Jason, let me
I
tell you, we're talking about 55 years,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You know why? One big reason we're in business for 55 years is this gentleman.
Yeah.
Here's some proof of it. That's why. Okay? Because it wouldn't be me on Facebook.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be me doing this, but he does it all. And we're working on a documentary, which is now it's older than my book. But the book is 8 years old, and I'm beginning to see the exit. And the film, we're beginning to see the exit. But the book is full of commentary and things. But I realized the commentaries are not going to help you understand the songs because I write uh, prose or whatever you want to call it. People don't think that it's really prose because when they read it, You know what the fuck I'm saying. So I don't know if it'll help. It'll be there, but there are some pictures that go along with the, you know. So uh, that but in terms of a book about my life, if I live long enough, I already know uh, how I want to do it. It's going to be called Recollections,
Uh-huh.
and the chapters are all going to be street names.
Nice. Is this an exclusive that you're giving me right now, Robert? Yeah.
Yeah, you could say that.
Uh,
I
I gotta.
also I also have a partially written novel, which I actually started before this other book called Summerfield, which is a small town in southern Ohio nobody knows of, near a town called Caldwell, which is the county seat of Noble County. Noble County is where my ancestors on my mother's side came from. Noble County is the gateway to Appalachia.
Ah.
My grandfather was a coal miner, and he got hurt in the mines, and Goodyear had come down and offered people, if you come north and you work in the Goodyear, we'll build you a house and let you work until you retire. So they came north with a lot of other people out of southern Ohio and West Virginia. And my grandfather got a job on the Akron Railroad, which is now the unearthed that got injured on the railroad, and then start working at the Goodyear. Okay, so that city, that little town, Summerfield, became the place where I started this book. And the book is about a guy who lives in Chicago, and he gets a letter, and the woman that he loved when he was a young man at the age of 15, and she was like 13, 14, had committed suicide. And he's going back there to investigate why. So anyway, that's where we're at. Sorry.
We got some
You
intrigue
asked.
here. No, I'm glad I got that answer too. I'm going to give you one more question here from
That's
a
it.
listener. Yeah, here's another one. Who was your biggest musical influence? I love you. That's Rachel in North Jackson, Ohio. Who was your name one person, Robert, who you consider to be your biggest musical influence?
Mrs. McDade, my music teacher in the
Uh-huh.
third grade, along with my mother and my aunt. Okay.
Yeah.
Because Mrs. McDade, what instrument you want to play, Robert? I went drums. She said, no, we're not doing that. I'm not doing that to your mom and father. So she tried to get me to play the violin, which I had no interest in. But the girl in the class, there were two of us, named Ruth Ann Capes. She took Ruth Ann Capes and me and put us in the children's opera Hansel and Gretel,
Mm.
and made me Hansel. And so I was Hansel in Hansel and Gretel in the third grade. And Ruth Ann Capes was Gretel, and she knew all the lines, and she'd feed me my lines because I didn't pay any attention to what the lines were. I sang the songs. You know, that was what I came to do because I've been in church choirs and that kind of thing. And at the end of it, Mrs. McDade came up to me and she said, you know, Robert, you were the best Hansel I ever had, which she told every boy every year, I'm sure. Okay.
Yeah.
And after that was over, my mother and aunt told me what a beautiful voice I have. How much they love. Oh, you have such a beautiful voice. I believe
Yeah.
until I got to be in my 20s and I ended up in the recording studio and heard my voice. And I said, such horrible liars, and they love me so much.
Uh,
You know what I mean?
Robert,
So I
can,
would say,
can
I would say Mrs. McDade was my biggest influence.
Robert, can I have you back on the show again, please?
Anytime you want.
My God, I think we have just scratched the surface, ladies and gentlemen. We have just scratched the surface on this man. Robert Kidney is his name. Ladies and gentlemen, Counterpoint, a musician's tale, and for the rockandroll.com, this has been Robert Kidney. Thank you, Robert.
You're more than welcome. Thank you for having me. It was an honor.
I believe I'll kick up and bust. Cold steel, morning light, traps me at the end of another night. Too many memories, too much to drink. I'm soaking my head in the sink. And out my window, I can see tomorrow's coming. This one will be a fist in the chair. I eat the blues for breakfast, left over from the night before. The bad news is resting, the devil standing at the door. We're going back to disaster, downhill with no brakes. Taking all the same chances and making the same mistakes. Somebody starts a fuss, and if somebody starts a fuss, I believe I'll kick up and bust.